Welcome to online lectures by CA Studies. For more lectures online, please do visit castudies.lk.
Hi everyone, I'm Claire Lianu, your lecturer for Corporate Level CL3 Advanced Management Accounting subject from CA Studies Institute. So welcome, and today we will be doing an overview of what the subject is and how the lectures will be delivered and how you would gain the maximum out of it for the benefit of your exam. So I hope it will be a great experience and I'm really excited to be part. So this is the overview of our presentation, and we have the introduction, so where we will be telling you all what is our subject and what you're going to learn in summary, and then we'll go through the format of the exam, and then the exam techniques that you should know, and then the main syllabus areas that has to be focused on, and then we'll be having a look at the syllabus just to see what chapters we'll have to learn, and then we'll be seeing the outcomes, which means the learning outcomes, which you should actually target on while you're studying. And finally, we will submit a study plan for y'all so that you all know how CA Studies will be delivering lectures and accordingly plan yourself in a very flexible way. Welcome to the introduction. So here I have provided you all an overview of your management accounting subject. Let's go through in summary what it is, because we need to know at which level we are being tested, and so what type of or level of knowledge we must already have before attempting the paper. So this is actually not to discourage you all, but to let you all know certain things that you all have to do by yourselves before you attempt the CL3 paper. Okay? So, your management accounting knowledge is tested based on knowledge pillar number 3, which is performance measurement and risk. Now, based on that knowledge pillar, they've tested your management accounting knowledge in 4 progressive levels, which are business level 1 via the BL2 business maths and stats subject, business level 2 via the BL6 management accounting subject, and then our subject corporate level, which is CL3 advanced management accounting, and then strategic level, which is SL2 corporate finance and risk management. So we at level 3 are one before the final level, which means we will be covering a more advanced area of management accounting, and at the same time we will need to have prior knowledge before attempting the CL3 paper, and that prior knowledge would be from business level 2 and business level 1, which are BL2 and BL6 subjects. So I recommend it's good to go and refresh your knowledge on BL6 and BL2 so that it will be easy for you all to attempt your paper successfully. Okay, let's take a look at the format of your exam. So, your AMA exam is structured to be completed within 3 hours with a pass mark of only 50%, but out of a total of 100 marks for 16 questions under 3 sections. Let's see what those 3 sections are. Section 1 comprises of 20 marks, where you got 10 questions at 2 marks each. But section 2 consists of 40 marks, where you got 4 questions at 10 marks each. And then the biggest section is section 3, where you have 40 marks still, but only for 2 questions where you get 20 marks each. So, based on the marks, they've organized the structure of the question to be tested for you all. Let's see what are they. So, section 1 comprises of MCQ, fill in the blanks and matching questions. So, they are very easy, I believe, because they've given the answer already and you got to select the correct answer. So, and they do test basic theoretical stuff. So, I believe it will be easy for us to attempt section 1 and score the maximum. Let's see what section 2 tests. Section 2 gives mini scenario or non-complex questions, meaning they want basic calculation and basic theoretical stuff, but in a more explanatory way, where you don't have to select the answer, but you have to give your own answer and show your workings. Okay, so that's why they've allocated 10 marks for each of those questions, meaning we should show all of our workings along with the answer, because the marks is divided accordingly, and then we might have to give certain conclusions, certain explanations, all of that. So let's go through that while we discuss revision kit and past paper questions. I'll tell you all about it at the end of the slide. Okay, next, section 3, they test complex scenario questions. That is why they give you 20 marks per question. So, this means all of your theoretical knowledge, all of your practical knowledge, you got to apply into the section, which is challenging but achievable. So, now let's take a look at the exam techniques we need to know to pass our exam successfully. So, first thing is plan well and be prepared. I know most of the students, they plan at the last minute and then they have no time to prepare, no time to practice questions, all of those trouble. So, if you plan well ahead and prepare a lesson plan accordingly so that you find time amidst your work, amidst other activities, then you will be able to peacefully attempt the paper confidently. Alright? Then next is time allocation. No matter how much you prepare or plan, if you can't attempt the paper in time, it'll still not give you a benefit, right? So you need to practice question within timelines or within the paper time, like 3 hours, okay? And then divide your time according to the number of questions and the marks allocated to the question, so that you use your time wisely during the exam. Next is syllabus knowledge. That's, of course, you need to participate in all of your lectures and get the perfect understanding on each theoretical aspect and practice. Keep practicing all of your questions, because practice makes perfect. So you need to have that practice, which is the next criteria, where you have to practice questions again under timed conditions. Okay? And then you have your revision plan. Revision plan is, you can have it like 2 months before the exam, or your choice, because there are fast learners, there are slow learners. It depends totally on you. But please have a revision plan and we will support you with that. I'll let you know at the end of the slide. So I think it's really great to have a proper revision. Finally is the marking scheme focus. Now, no matter what you learn, if you don't know what the examiner expects exactly, you won't be able to attempt your paper successfully. So you need to know what is the mark scheme, how the examiner marks your answer, your workings, what do they expect, all of that. And I'm going to cover that in the next slide. Alright, so let's continue from the marking scheme focus. Okay, so this list of verbs that I have given is from the CA Institute, where they expect us to know the meaning, the exact meaning of these words, so that we'll be able to attempt our paper successfully. Alright, and give the correct answer as expected by the examiner. No matter what knowledge we know, if we aren't able to present it in a way it is expected, it would be pointless. Okay. So, CA Sri Lanka tests your knowledge under 5 to 6 tiers, and here you could see only tier 1 and tier 2. Okay. Tier 1 focuses on the remembering capacity of the student. So they have words like define, draw, identify, list, relate, state, all of those verbs that you need to answer in a sentence or two. Because if you see, like for example, identify, they define it as recognize, establish or select after consideration. So it means you need to just give what the question asks just in 1 or 2 sentences. Next we'll look at comprehension. So comprehension means you need to explain a bit more. You explain it only when they mention the words calculate, discuss, explain, interpret, recognize, record and summarize. So calculate means you need to do a mathematical calculation and then show your workings. That's enough. When it comes to discuss, you need to discuss in detail with arguments. Also, you need to arrive at a conclusion. When it comes to explain, you just describe with just giving some examples. You can just describe, no need to give any arguments. But when it comes to interpret, it's different. It is like the advanced version of identify, where in identification you just identify the definition maybe, but in interpretation you just make the definition more understandable. Alright. Next we have recognize. Recognize is showing a validity using your knowledge or experience. This means like you can use your theoretical knowledge and apply it to show that this particular scenario is applicable to this theory in a short way. Alright. And then we have record. Record means from a particular place you are extracting data and recording it in a more presentable way. That's it. They expect just an explanation. And then summarize is where you give a brief summary of what you know and of what you know about the question. So that's it on comprehension. Let's look at tier 3 and tier 4 next. Tier 3 is application. So in application, you'll have words like apply, assess, demonstrate, graph, prepare and prioritize, and even reconcile and solve. So let's see what each of it means. But overall, what they expect is for you to apply in further detail your theoretical knowledge to the practical scenario and give your conclusion. Okay, let's see. Apply means, as directly stated, put to practical use. Assess means determine the value nature, ability or quality. Okay, so by values you can use numerical stuff plus, different factors you could use including numericals and other qualitative factors to conclude on your answer. Then you have demonstrate, where you have to provide with examples. Then next is graph, means you have to draw a graph, but with detailed information. That's why it's in tier 3. Prepare is you have to prepare maybe a report, anything like that. So that's why they say ready for a particular purpose. And then you have prioritize. Prioritize means maybe say the steps of a particular answer, such things, or maybe attempt for the first part of the answer first and then the second next. They would be expecting when they say prioritize. And then we have reconcile, which means you have to say something is equal with the other or something is different with the other. You need to reconcile and show it. Then you have solve. Solve means solve your equation, solve the problem via a calculation plus an explanation. Next, let's look at tier 4 analysis. Now, analysis means you will find words like analyze, compare, contrast, differentiate and outline. Analyze is basically again the same thing, but you need to have go beyond your theory to give conclusion. That's why they expect further in detail. And compare means you have to find similarities between two scenarios. But contrast means you must find differences between two scenarios. And differentiate means you must say the features that differentiates a particular item from another item. Okay, so that is meant by differentiation. And outline means again a summary but of the significant features. So now let's look at tier 5 and tier 6. Alright, let's look at tier 5 evaluate and tier 6 synthesis. Tier 5 evaluate comprises of the keywords advise, convince, criticize, evaluate, recommend, resolve and validate. All of these keywords indicate that you need to provide a judgment or a decision about your finding using the theoretical knowledge you already have. So let's quickly glance through what each of it means. Advice means offering suggestions about the best action in a manner suitable to the recipient. So they would give questions like advise the consultant, advise the shareholder. So according to the knowledge and professionalism of that recipient, you need to structure your answer. Next is convince. Convince is persuading others to believe something using evidence. Always have a backup if you are to convince another person to follow your method. Alright? Next is criticize. Criticize means you need to form negative judgments, positive judgments and give a conclusion. Evaluate is you should determine the significance by careful appraisal. So significance of a particular area you must identify and provide the pros and cons of it and highlight how important that concept is. Then you have recommend. Recommend is you suggest an action suitable to the scenario. Resolve, it means you find a solution to the problem. Validate means you have to prove the accuracy. Alright. Next, let's look at the last year, which is synthesis. So, synthesis involves words like compile, design, develop, and propose. They are all to make you solve unfamiliar problems by combining different aspects to form unique conclusions. So, you should be having a very vast theoretical knowledge and be able to use multiple theories in order to attempt questions with words like this. So, basically, this level of words, or meaning the tier 6, will be tested in your section 3, because if they give you complex scenario questions, and you will surely see words such as compile, propose, design, all of that. So please be aware of these words carefully, because as I said, if you aren't sure of what the examiner expects, there is no point of passing. I mean, you cannot pass because you're not meeting the expectation. But don't worry, as we practice questions, I will teach you all how to focus and how to develop your answer to meet each of these words, so that it'll be in practice and it'll be easy to attempt the paper. Now let's look at the main syllabus areas, which means the weightage provided by CA Sri Lanka to your syllabus. So, the highest weightage, as you could see, is 30% from Part C, decision making. Why it is so? Because you're in the corporate level, one level before being qualified as a professional, because you're at the 3rd level and there are 4 levels. So you need to have very high decision making abilities in the business world, and that's why they've given a higher percentage there. But secondly, they go to planning and controlling with 25%, which is also like decision making but has several aspects to it, which we will cover later. Thirdly, 20% goes for cost management. So that is like the basic of management accounting, which is managing your costs effectively and efficiently, and that's why a 20% weightage is provided. Then you have 15% for risk and uncertainty. Actually, this is also a very big area, but at this level they test only 15% of it. Next you have 10%, which is working capital management, which is also very vital, but at this stage you would be required to only know like 10%. So that 10% doesn't mean you need to know little, but it means your testing probability in that area is only up to 10%. That's what they mean. Alright, next let's look at what chapters are under each section. Okay, now let's look at the syllabus at a glance. So, you got 2 books, which is volume 1 and volume 2. That's why I have separated syllabus at a glance to 2 slides. The slide that you could see is volume 1, which comprises of 9 chapters. And volume 2 comprises of 5 chapters, which you will see next. Let's go through what chapters we need to learn and what chapters belong to each section. So, first 5 chapters belong to part A, which is cost management at 20%. The chapters are modern manufacturing environment, activity-based costing, strategic cost management and value creation, environmental aspects of cost management, and learning curve. The next 4 chapters belong to part B, planning and controlling, which comprises 25%. So this includes standard costing and variance analysis, capacity planning, budgeting, and responsibility centers and transfer pricing. Alright, next let's look at Volume 2 chapters, which are Part C decision making, Part D risk and uncertainty, and Part E working capital management. So, Part C, which is 30%, comprises of 4 chapters, which are short-term decision making, long-term decision making, pricing, big data again for decision making. So, it's more about decision making, and that's why it's aligned to Part C. Then you have your 14th chapter, which is risk and uncertainty in decision making. That belongs to Part D, just one chapter, 15%. Then you have working capital management, which is Part E, and that's 10% only. Now, let's take a look at the learning outcomes assigned to each section of your syllabus. So, the first section is cost management, which is 20%. So for that, they've assigned knowledge component 1.1, which is modern manufacturing environment. And under that, they have built learning outcomes, which is relating to those knowledge components. Let's see what they are. But before that, let's understand what is modern manufacturing. Because your syllabus is based on this concept of modern manufacturing. Okay. So modern manufacturing means automation within your production processes, and it extends to non-production processes as well, with the view of improving efficiency and maximizing profits. So Chartered Institute wants you to know the old approaches to accounting under traditional approach and the new approach to accounting under the modern approach. And that is how they have structured your syllabus. Alright, let's look at the specifics. So they want you to identify the drivers for such change, and then explain concepts of just in time, just in case, and then explain the importance of quality costing. And then they introduce you to this famous throughput accounting principle, where you tend to find your profit maximized point via this principle, and then you should know the pros and cons of backflush costing. So that is under these set of learning outcomes. Let's see what we have next. So next, they expect you to know the evolution of resource planning and management systems that happened as a result of changing to modern manufacturing. So that is being covered again in chapter 1. And then they've created a new knowledge component, which is activity-based costing, that also has arose with the change to modern manufacturing. So they require you to know the advantages and disadvantages of this method when compared to old costing methods such as absorption costing, marginal costing. Then you have the application of the ABC method and the use of it in a resource consumption model, and then the importance of activity-based management. So all of that you are supposed to discuss and evaluate, not just explain. So you need to know very in detail about those theories, which I will explain you all during the lectures. So they are all covered in chapter 2 of your syllabus. Next knowledge component, strategic cost management and value creation. So this, they want you to know and be able to discuss value creation processes within an organization. to enhance your long-term profits. So you will have value chain analysis, life cycle costing, target costing approaches, all of that covered in chapter 3. Okay, let's move on to the next. So your next learning outcome is designed for a new section which is planning and controlling, which is 25%. So the knowledge component covered here is 2.1 standard costing and variance analysis. So what they want you to do here is compute, prepare, interpret, analyze, and again discuss variance analysis under different costing methods. So you have absorption costing, marginal costing, and then that's what they've specified, and then you got to analyze these variances in a way to make effective decisions. There are methods of analysis, and such methods of analysis are explained under chapter 6. So if you go through certain aspects under specific knowledge, they say they want you to learn basic variances under absorption costing and marginal costing, and then account for variances in the integrated accounting system, and interpret such variances, finding the interrelationships. Planned and operational variances must be identified, and so on, and what are the factors, what are the percentage variances, all of that. So it's more of a computational aspect in this learning outcome. Then they want you to understand the application of standardization within a modern business environment. So they want you to know the advantages, the disadvantages, and then the applicability of benchmarking versus standard costing. So a comparison, all right? But under the heading or the word evaluation, because they say evaluate the applicability of standard costing in modern business environment. So you need to know, and you need to present your arguments plus the positives along with comparison, and then conclude. So a new knowledge component we come across, which is 2.2 capacity planning. So capacity planning is covered in chapter 7, and it's also about evaluating, discussing, applying. Okay, but applying, when it comes to applying, they assess your short-term capacity application and long-term capacity planning application. So how you use the concepts discussed in chapter 7 in order to apply to the scenario and express your views. Alright, let's move on to the next. Okay, let's learn the next knowledge component, 2.3 budgeting. Budgeting is a very common theory in management accounting, and that is why it's covered in here as well. So what you're expected to learn under budgeting is to explain the purpose of budgeting and their conflicts, to discuss the different approaches to budgeting, and discuss the relevance of non-financial indicators to performance measurements that are used to assess the level of budgets, and the differentiation between traditional and beyond budgeting. And then you have how business analytics supplement traditional budgeting and planning with forecasts. So all of it is covered in chapter 8 of your syllabus. It's very interesting area because it's like the heart of management accounting. And so you are expected to discuss and differentiate and outline all of its aspects. So I think it will be an interesting area to learn. Next we have new knowledge component 2.4, performance measurement responsibility centers. And then we have again performance measurement transfer pricing. So all of these are created with the goal of maximizing profit and minimizing inefficiencies. Alright. So you are expected to evaluate, discuss. That's it. And then you have your chapter 9 that covers it all. So under evaluation, you are supposed to evaluate the performance of the divisions of a decentralized organization, discuss the behavioral implications of divisional performance measures, discuss transfer pricing methods, and then evaluate the behavioral effects of transfer pricing. Alright. Then we move on to section C, which is the largest section in your syllabus, which is decision making 30%. So here your knowledge component is 3.3, optimizing with multiple limiting factors. So here they, as a first learning outcome, they want you to know the graphical method of optimizing multiple factors. Let's move on to the next and see what the rest are. So continuing under decision making, you have 3.1.2, 3.1.3 under the same learning outcome, where you need to learn linear programming and break-even analysis. So it's like the advanced version of your BL2 subject, which is relating to business maths and stats. So this is where you need to refresh your knowledge on your maths and attempt this area covered in chapter 10. Then you have a new learning outcome under the new knowledge component, which is relevant costing for short-term decisions and long-term decision making, which is involving advanced investment appraisal. So relevant costing, you need to know how to apply relevant cost concepts for short-term decisions such as make or buy, shutdown, special pricing, and further processing decisions. And then you need to evaluate projects with tax implications, apply monetary methods, real methods to get the impact of inflation when you do project appraisals, and evaluate projects with unequal life cycles. All three of them from 331 to 333 is covered under long-term decision making knowledge component covered in chapter 11. So as I know, this is more of computation and analysis using qualitative and quantitative factors, which we will go through during our lectures. It's a very highly tested area, and so I think you all must prepare well to face it properly. Especially it's mostly tested in section 2 of your paper. So let's practice and be prepared. Then we have evaluating projects with capital rationing situations, where we will use NPV methods, and then we discuss strategies and weaknesses of investment appraisal techniques. And this is very important when you write your answer if the question is to evaluate, because you will have to evaluate an investment appraisal, and there the question you'll answer with your computation, and then you have to analyze by giving these weaknesses and the strengths of the method that you choose to make that decision. So it's very important to know it. Then we have assess non-financial factors for project evaluation. That is also one vital aspect for you to know. So all of it is covered under chapter 11. So it's a big chapter. Alright. Next we have a new knowledge component, which is pricing decisions, where you apply marginal approaches to arrive at optimum selling price, apply price elasticity, which you may have heard in economics maybe. So they are covered under chapter 12. Okay, let's move on to the next. So under other pricing strategies, you will need to know market-based pricing and their consequences of implementing them, which is also covered in chapter 12. Then a new knowledge component, which is big data for decision making. That they expect you to know the implication of big data, which is now in the trend, and they have added a new syllabus subject into your curriculum, which is I think BL8. So yeah, so they just want you to briefly have an idea of the effect of big data in your operational and strategic decisions, and that is covered in chapter 13. Alright, next is risk and uncertainty, section D. Let's see what learning outcomes are assigned to this section. So it's just one chapter, but you see there are several learning outcomes. Okay, so the first one is decision tree, and then we have investment appraisal again, which was covered under decision making and now under risk and uncertainty as well. And we have risk management. So decision tree, they want you to apply probabilities in a decision tree, and then for investment appraisal, they want you to evaluate projects under risk consideration, review such results and then draw conclusions. And then under risk management, they want you to assess the risk management process of an organization and then apply the TARA framework. Yeah, it's a very interesting framework for assessing risks. So these all of learning outcomes are covered under chapter 14. Alright, let's see what's next. Then we have section E, which is working capital management, amounting to 10%. So this is the last chapter, which is chapter 15, but it also has several learning outcomes. Okay, the knowledge components here are managing working capital, receivables and payables management, and inventory management. Basically, your working capital. So they want you to know how you could illustrate the concepts of working capital, discuss working capital investment and financing policies, and analyze the impact of working capital cycle in a firm's operational performance. And when it comes to receivables, they want you to recommend strategies to have an effective receivable collection system that will boost our working capital. And then we have inventory management, where we have to evaluate the impacts to EOQ, which is economic order quantity, in different scenarios like discounts. And then finally, they want you to discuss the use of ABC classification, JIT arrangements, which is just in time, for inventory management. So it's connecting with the previous concepts that we learned, but in a more accounting way over here, which is management accounting. All right, so it's more of mathematical calculation based on logic and based on the theories developed in your syllabus. So they are all covered in chapter 15. All right, let's move on to the next. Finally, the last part of working capital management, which is cash and treasury management, last and vital part. So you need to know the importance of cash management and evaluate short-term sources of finances, and then the investment strategies which are short-term, because working capital management are short-term. So Basically, you need to be able to discuss and evaluate such strategies. Now, we have arrived at the end of learning outcomes. So now you must have an idea of what is expected by you when you study your subject and how you should plan your subject learning accordingly to achieve these learning outcomes and face the exam successfully. But don't worry, we will provide lectures aligned with these learning outcomes so that you will be able to grasp easily and quickly connect to these factors. Alright, let's move on to our study plan. So we've come to the end of the presentation, and the last slide is the study plan, which I initially told I'll be sharing with you all. So we at CA Studies would deliver video-based lecture series, do revision kit questions after each chapter, provide you mind maps, that means chapter summaries for you to remember the key concepts of management accounting, and to do past paper questions that will be discussed towards the end of the lectures, and that will enable you to pass your exam confidently at the first attempt. So I think it was an interesting session and I'm really excited to do this. Hopefully, let's meet at the lectures. Thank you.
Thank you for watching the video. Stay tuned with castudies.lk for more lectures online.